All right. Welcome in, everyone. Welcome back to Adobe Live. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much to Kyle T. Webster, who was on just before that. I think that was an otter. He was illustrating. Was that an otter? I always try to guess what it's going to be. Of course, I'm never right because he's way too clever for me. But excellent stream, Kyle. Thank you so much. My name is VooDoo Val, and I'm going to be your host slash co-designer, co-illustrator for another design off. I see Surge in chat. I see Sam. I see RB. Welcome in. It's good to see you folks. I hope you can hear me and see me loud and clear. And I'm joined by my new friend, Ciele. How are you doing, girl?
Hey, I'm good. I'm doing so good. Really
I'm
happy.
so excited. It's gonna be fun. Ciel and I have been like vibing off stream and hanging out. So we're super stoked to kind of jump into what we've got planned today. But before I give you guys like the scoop on what's going on, I do want to call attention to our schedule because we had a really awesome lineup for today, and we also will have that lineup tomorrow. So I'm gonna pop over here for Wednesday and Thursday. We are starting out our day at 7:30 a.m. Pacific time, bright and early, with Spencer Nugent doing Getting Started with Photoshop on the iPad. I think that's a fabulous segment. I know a lot of you have been eager to get your hands on some new knowledge for the iPad version of Photoshop, so definitely check that out. Followed by Paul Tranny, our wonderful worldwide evangelist for Photoshop, doing the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge. Lizzie Pierce is here with us this week doing some photo editing around 9:30, followed by the one and only Andrew Hockrattle doing the Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge. That guy is always a hoot, so definitely don't miss out on that. Molly Russell is with us as well this week doing some branding and identity for some really awesome cans of cider. I was lucky enough to catch that stream earlier. It is super awesome, and we also have her real clients in the chat watching the broadcast. So that's always really cool to get to see client and designer interaction as well as just the live design. Jesse Showalter is with us this week doing the XD Daily Creative Challenge. We just had Kyle T. Webster up just before us, and then Ciele and I are going to be rounding out today and tomorrow with the design off. So Ciele, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell everybody a little bit about you, the kind of work that you like to do, just in case we have any unfamiliar faces in the chat with us today.
Sure, sounds good. My name is Ciele Beau, and I am an artist from Vancouver, Canada. And yeah, I do graphic design, illustration. I'm a painter, so I do murals as well. And yeah, I typically my work is like a very bright and colorful. A lot of times people are like, it's so cute and happy. I usually like to put like a little bit of humor in there, focusing on like elements of like the human condition. Sometimes it can also be things that are like easily accessible, but maybe have like a slightly deeper meaning if people like care to look at it that way as well. I also have a painting practice based on a condition I have called synesthesia. So when
Oh
I
wow!
yeah, I guess I hadn't told you that, but
Yeah.
um, when I hear music, I feel color and see shapes. So I created, um, yeah, a painting practice around that in university, and so I still do that as well as my illustrative work. And yeah, and I also work on the TV show Riverdale, so that's kind of fun
That's
too.
amazing. That's so
Yeah,
cool. I didn't know that. Wait a second. Wait a
yeah,
second.
you can read
Okay,
about
I may be incorrect about this,
me.
but I heard a rumor that our very own Paco may have been an extra on Riverdale. And if
Oh,
so, that's like a massive coincidence. That's like crazy. Maybe somebody can confirm that for me, but I'm pretty sure that was said in a previous Adobe Live. At which point, I am just gonna like freak out because that is so neat. um, but yeah, so today for our theme for the design off, Ciele and I are going to be designing like promos or just like visual elements based on fictional events. So if you're an illustrator or a painter like us, definitely a super awesome challenge for you to get in on. If you are more of a graphic designer, this is also your jam, you know, same with like hand letterers and stuff. But I want to make sure that I point out that like anybody who designs for any discipline, this is really something you guys can get into. If you're a UI UX designer, you could do a mock-up landing page for a fictional event. Pretty much about anything you guys want. I'm gonna be designing a promo poster for like a fictional LARPing event. And if you don't know what LARPing is, LARP stands for live action role playing. So it's like grown ups with swords and prosthetic elf ears, like just running around in the woods, like saying "Hello, my lady." Like that's that is what I'm doing because that is like my jam. I loved cosplay. I love swords and shields, and I think dragons are dope. So that's what I'm gonna be jumping into. And what do you have planned for today, CL? What are you gonna be doing?
I had a few ideas, but I think I'm gonna go with one today, and then if I finish it, then I'll do the other one tomorrow. So for today, I'm gonna be doing one based around a fictional drag show because I love
Nice.
drag queens, and I have art that I've made of drag queens, and I just love their confidence and their self-expression. It's just so inspiring.
It really is. It
So
really is. I'm newer to like the whole drag queen hype. I got like kind of interested in that because I took a Zumba class from somebody who like the instructor was a drag queen in his spare time, and he came to the Halloween class dressed up as Sailor Moon, like in full like drag Sailor Moon, and I was like, you are the most kind-hearted, like totally, like you said, like confidence and just like, here I am, this is my heart, this is what I love, this is what I'm about, and it's very inspiring. So I'm stoked that you're doing this.
yeah, and I'm gonna focus on my like reference image. I'm gonna like move away from it, but the reference image that I'm using is based on somebody, a drag queen from Vancouver actually, and they're called Continental Breakfast. And I don't know if you can see this.
Oh yeah, there we
There.
go. Ooh, I love it. I love the bathtub like
Ah,
bath bomb flower pictures in general. So this is amazing.
so I want to do like because their name is Continental Breakfast, and I just think that's so awesome. But I'm gonna do like an all day breakfast is gonna be like the name of the show. And instead of the flowers, I think I'm gonna make it like Fruit Loops and stuff. So I'm gonna riff
Yes.
on the image, but yeah.
Yes, I'm so excited. Also, Ariana says Dragon Dragons. Awesome. That could be like an event in and of itself if
That's
somebody
true.
wants to
Like a
design
hybrid.
something for that. Yes, Dragon Dragons, and it's just like drag queens larping in the woods with swords. I'm here for it. I'm
Me too.
down.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Please
we could
fulfill
just
the
jump
dream for
into
us.
it. One of the things I wanted to ask you as we kind of dive into designing and stuff, I thought it was really interesting that you said that you had synesthesia, and that is also something that I learned about recently because I know someone now who recently discovered that they also have synesthesia, and I wonder what that's like from your perspective, just like creating as an artist, kind of interpreting your artistic vision and stuff into work. Like what is that, do you think you know like how that interacts and how that changes your perspective a little bit? What is it like?
Um, like specific to like the art practice that I created, or just like kind of in life in general.
I mean, maybe both if you're comfortable with sharing, because I'm just really interested in understanding more about it.
Totally, yeah. So I guess I'll just kind of share my where I found out about it as well. Um, I um, I didn't actually find out that I had synesthesia until I was like 22, which I guess was like 8 years ago. I'm
Okay.
30.
Hey.
What's up? Um, yeah, so I had always like had the experience that I had with music and whatever, but I just never realized that there was a name for it, and also that other people didn't also experience synesthesia. Like I just assumed that that was like a normal experience that you're supposed to have, I
Gotcha.
guess.
And maybe,
So
not to cut you off at all, but maybe
no, it's
like
okay.
kind of a generalization, or not generalization, but you know, just maybe kind of an idea for those who have no idea what synesthesia is, like maybe you can
Totally.
just tell them what that means about um, like how you perceive things and how you interact with different senses.
Yes, that is a great point. Sometimes I'm like, "Meow, meow, meow," and then like most people are like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Um, so synesthesia basically is a neurological condition where your brain misfires sensory information. So there's a number of different ways that you can experience synesthesia, and the word synesthesia is sort of just an umbrella term for the brain crossfire of sensory information.
Mm-hmm.
So for my painting practice, I specifically focus on sound to color synesthesia. And that is where, when you hear music or like tone, you see color and shape. So for
Wow.
me, I actually don't see color, but I feel it. So in the same way that you would experience like emotion, and you sort of in your body, you're like, oh, I can chemically sort of feel that my body is sad, and like we just sort of know that, or like we're happy inside, and it's like almost on like a cellular level.
Uh-huh.
My body kind of like feels color when it hears music, but then
Wow.
at the same time I'm seeing or experiencing like um, shape in my mind's eye though. So for some people it's right in front of them and it's actually like visually obstructive. I'm kind of lucky because it's more happening like here,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not like right in front, so it doesn't um, like affect me in sort of any negative way.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And then um, yeah. Da, 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 da.
So
Where was
when you're like creating work and stuff, are you just kind of experiencing that like as you're, for instance, like creating a mural, or like you're out, working a job and you're just kind of experiencing these um, extra kind of like sensory experiences? Like that's just so I'm sorry, I'm like kind of like blown away by the concept of experiencing sound and color and everything in this way.
totally. Yeah, so it doesn't sometimes I find that I can like it's there and I don't really want it to be kind of thing, but
Mm-hmm.
usually it's like more of just like a pleasant thing, so it's not super distracting or anything. And then when I'm using it for like my actual work, I'll like sit down and like really focus on it. So I can kind of, it happens regardless, but I can sort of like tune it out a little bit,
Ah.
whether or not I'm going to be like hyper focused on it. Um, there are times though, like if things are very loud or if I'm in like a very kind of overwhelming situation, especially sound wise, that's when I like can't kind of like
Yeah, can't
quiet
tune it
down the
out, can't.
response kind of thing. Like I'm just like, ugh. So I don't actually typically go to like, I love live music. I love live music,
Mm-hmm.
but clubs and stuff I do find to be just like a little bit too much for me. There's just like a lot going on and just like a lot of like stimulus and stuff. So I tend to like not go clubbing. Not that anybody can now, anyways, but I find that's like environments where I'm kind of like a little overwhelmed by my response. Um, but I've also had it where like I went to a concert once. And it was like a classical concert, and there was this really beautiful piece where the guy had like six cellos on stage, and then they all started playing and specifically all played the same note at the same time.
Uh-huh.
And I felt my whole body just felt like it like went on fire. And I like, I remember I like clutched the like armrests
Uh-huh.
of the theater seats because I was like so overwhelmed. It was like, yeah, my whole body went orange, is what it felt like to me. And I was just like, like it was really intense. And
Wow.
then you're just kind of like, the people around you don't know that you're experiencing that, and you probably look kind of like crazy if I were to be like, oh my god, I'm so orange right now.
I'm super orange right this moment.
So, yeah, yeah. So so there are times
Wow.
where it's like a little intense, but mostly I've been able to like, yeah, adapt or like, yeah, just like function normally. I do have another type. I have two other kinds of synesthesia as well.
Uh-huh.
Um, but that the sound to color is like specifically what I do my art practice around. and the other ones are temporal spatial. Sorry, I'm like talking so much. I'm not actually drawing.
No,
Just
no, no,
cracking.
you're fine. If you needed to take a breather or whatever, I'm like so totally enamored with the conversation though, and I think everyone in chat is like kind of blown away as well, like hearing this. This is I'm loving it.
Yay. Okay, cool. I'll try to do both at the same time if I can.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, so the other kind is called temporospatial, and so that's where you um, typically you like visualize time and like the count, like dates and
Mhm.
stuff, sort of in a different way. So like, here's a question: when you think of the calendar, either the monthly or the like the yearly calendar, how do
Mhm.
you visualize that? What does that look like in your brain when you
When I think of a calendar, I um, think of like the grid square of a calendar, or I think of like a calendar icon that might be used for an app. Like I see a visual representation of that, like a square with a number on it.
right? Totally. And that's like super normal. Most people do see it in a very like linear sense. So it's like, yeah, the grid system or yeah, more like specific to the calendar that we're used to.
Mm-hmm.
And then for me, when I visualize like the year, for example, it's in a circle and it's like tilted on like a 33-degree axis, I guess. And the winter is like up, like this is like January, December, and then it comes down to like springish, and then there's like summer, and then it starts going back up the other
Wow.
way. And it's always been like that. And that one specifically, I really never knew that other people didn't see like the months of the year that way, because I just, that's like the only way I've ever envisioned it. And for some reason, that falls under synesthesia as well. Things like that, where you like visualize time and dates different. I'm not exactly sure how that fits, but it does. It's just like a type of synesthesia. So I guess if I have one kind, it makes sense that I would also have others. Um, and then the third kind that I experience is called mirror touch synesthesia, and basically that's when you like see something happen to somebody else and you feel it happen to you.
Oh wow.
So I don't experience that in like a general sense. Like I'm not seeing like everything that happens to everybody else does not physically like run through my body, but
Mm-hmm.
I do feel it when it comes to pain response, which is sort
Oh.
of unfortunate because it's the only one, like, unlike the sound to color, where that's like a fairly pleasant experience. The mirror touch is, I can't control that one. So it's like if I'm watching, say it's sports, like in real life or on television, and there's like a high impact something, like, or just before someone's about to fall, I
Mm-hmm.
always feel this like very, it's kind of, it's a sharp pain in my like lower back, and it sort of like flares out. Uh,
Wow.
just before someone gets hurt. So I'll feel pain in my body right before they feel the pain in their body. Um, in TV shows, I find it's kind of like, maybe it's because I know subconsciously that it's not real. I don't always get that response, but
Mm-hmm.
definitely in real life, if I can see that someone's like about to accidentally get hit or like fall or trip or like something, sometimes I even feel it when, like, say someone trips and the outcome could be that they recover and like keep walking, or they trip and they actually hit the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I feel the pain response when I see it's about to happen, almost like preemptively, even if they don't actually fall.
Wow.
um, so that one's just like super bizarre. And my boyfriend, like, obviously he knows all these things, but like occasionally if we're in public and something like that happens, I'll just kind of like squeeze his arm just because I need to like process the
Mm-hmm.
like feeling out of my body kind of thing. So he kind of like knows. He's like, oh yeah,
Well, that's really
kind of
cool that you have, somebody so close who can be kind of like a support
thing.
group
Hmm.
in a sense for that. But that's really like I've never heard somebody like really in depth kind of explain what that's like. And I think when I first heard about synesthesia, my initial thought process was would I do art if I had synesthesia.
Right.
or would my artwork be like totally different than how it is now, if I had synesthesia? And so that's interesting how um, all of those things kind of culminate like into your style, and how you just kind of interact with your art while you're working. That's just really cool. Thank you for sharing. I know that's like a lot
Yeah.
of like kind of like personal stuff
Oh,
to give us, but
yeah.
I'd love it. That's
I'm
really
gonna
cool.
book, even though I mean I don't know that I know anybody in the chat, but hello new friends, and ask me anything because
Awesome,
I
awesome.
really, yeah, I don't mind sharing. It's like it's kind of fun, especially with the synesthesia stuff too. Like I don't always get to
To
talk
talk
about
about
that,
it. Yeah.
so it's nice to share. Yeah.
Yeah, it's thank you for sharing. That's awesome. I wanna welcome some new folks into the chat. I see. Is it Lil? I don't know how to pronounce your name, and I'm very sorry if I have mispronounced it. I would love to know how to pronounce your name, but welcome to the chat. And Steve Festus Casaboom, man with the coolest name around. Welcome in. It's good to see you. Keith, it's great to see you in chat as well. And Ariana, I called attention to you earlier, but I don't believe I greeted you specifically. Welcome in. And Ariana's saying, "Oh wow, now that you explain it, I have heard of this before. I just never remembered what it was called." Yeah, that's really cool. And on the topic of like kind of doing murals and creating work, something that Ciel and I were discussing previously, before we began the stream, was kind of talking about, I guess, like, almost like the interesting um, similarities between working on murals and like doing convention work and stuff like that, because she had mentioned about like the different kinds of people she encounters working on a mural, because people are just kind of like walking right down the street and taking a look and seeing what you're up to. And I had mentioned, because one of the things, CL, that we kind of talk about on the stream, or I at least try to bring attention to a lot, is just kind of what it's like as an artist to interact with other people who maybe don't do art regularly or don't understand how it is to be an artist for a living. Um, and I thought something that was really interesting that we discussed, was that like, even though we're kind of doing like different things, like I'm dressed as an elf standing at a convention table, and you're like, I don't know, I imagine you like up on some scaffolding, like painting a giant face on a wall, the people we encounter are very similar, um,
Mm,
you know and I think that it's possible that there's some people in the chat who have never done uh, a mural, and have never done work at a convention, and still might encounter the kinds of reactions from other people to their art and to their work. And sometimes we as designers and creators find ourselves um, kind of interacting with people who don't understand the struggle, rather than not understanding like the more positive parts of work. And so it can sometimes be a little overwhelming to inform them, right?
mm,
Like, you had mentioned like people who will show up to the mural every day and just see your progress and all that stuff, or people who like to stop and have like a full conversation with you while you're working, and get interested and learn about what you're doing. And I have those same people too, I've had people in the past who will stop me at a convention and have a long enough conversation with me, unfortunately sometimes, that I'm worried about like if I'm gonna be doing my job properly. um,
mm.
and and it's almost kind of the same thing as streaming too, like you stream and you broadcast, and it could be a little nerve-wracking, because you're in front of people, and You're talking to folks that you've never encountered before, and people have the ability to kind of comment live on what you're working on. And I wondered if you had maybe any advice to some folks who might be newer to doing work live in front of a community as a mural artist, for how you interact with people, and maybe how you keep doing your work, I guess, even when you have people who are actively trying to capture your attention,
Right.
because that can be hard sometimes.
Totally. I think I'm still figuring it out, but definitely from like a mural standpoint, um, yeah, when I first started doing murals, I've only done a few outdoor murals, and most of them were this year. And uh, yeah, figuring out how to like still engage with people, because obviously like you're in a public space, and oftentimes if they're part of the community that you're painting in, it's their space.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to be engaging with them, and making sure that like everyone's on board and like happy and all the things. But then there is a point where like you just kind of have to get the work done.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would just spend all my time just talking to people. As I think I'm like basically just a clear example of what I always do right now is that I'm like chatting and I'm like not working at the same time. Um, but yeah, so like at a certain point, if you have like timing, like a timeline that you have to get your project done, and you're kind of at the whim of this like public environment, I find that like, and actually Val and I were talking about this earlier as well, before the stream started, just in terms of being your own brand and representing like every action that you take, especially when you're at a conference or like a convention, sorry, or making art in the public.
Mm-hmm.
You're representing yourself and your brand and your business and all that kind of stuff. So you have to figure out ways to like be able to engage authentically with people and then also do your job at the same time. So figuring out that balance. I find with murals, because your back is turned to people, there is an opportunity to sort of create a bit of a boundary. I know a lot of people actually wear headphones even if they're not listening to anything, and not because
Ah.
they're trying to be like the most antisocial. Like a lot of artists would like to engage, but it's just very hard to actually get stuff done when you have to be turned away from your artwork in order to talk to
Yeah,
somebody.
yeah.
So that's like kind of like a little trick that people use, is to just put headphones in, because then you cut your interactions by like 50%. um, I'm not as good at doing that, but I actually did. I was just doing a mural this past week, and I finished on Monday. And I had originally thought that I was going to go Thursday to Sunday, and I was done. And I had like 2 to 3 helpers every day, and we still didn't finish on Sunday night, and we got rained out. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to go back on Monday and do it myself. So because I was alone, I didn't have like my like volunteers to, interact with and whatever. And so sometimes you get less people talking to you as well when you have more people working. And also
Oh.
sometimes your helpers can like bounce off the conversation so that you can sort of keep working or delegating to other people doing different sections. But I was alone, so I did use the earbud to just like
The
kind of block out
tactic.
it. But I did end up, you have so many conversations with people, and it's really fun. But as I was like feeling the pressure of being like, I have to finish by the end of the day, there was like some people who was like, I'm so glad you're talking to me. I'm just going to keep painting while you're talking to me, but only because I have 30 minutes left and I just cannot do anything else right now. So it's like sometimes just being clear about what the need or the expectation is. Most people don't want to like bug you in a way that will stop, like impede. They're just so curious, because a lot of people don't know
Yeah.
about murals, or it's interesting to me because I spend all of my time really talking to and hanging out with other artists, and so it's kind of my whole world and the way that I see things, and the sort of echo chamber, if you will, of what I hear in life. So then when you're out in public space, you really get to hear like everyone's perspective, or people who are just like, you realize how many people are actually just completely unfamiliar
Yeah,
with
yeah.
art and like the art world. And um, yeah, that can be really fascinating. You also kind of hear it in the way that people make some people make like demeaning comments, almost like
Uh-huh.
things where they're just kind of like, oh, but like what do you do for your
For your
job?
job. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, like
I know
this,
you
like
draw, but what's your job?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, like I'm a full-time like freelance artist. This is what I do. And they're like, yeah, but
But how
like,
do you
mm,
eat?
yeah, like what do you do to get paid? And I was like, wow,
Well,
really? I'm like this, like
yeah.
literally this.
Literally
Like,
what I'm doing right now. No, you're totally right, and that kind of goes like hand in hand with like just like some people they've never interacted with somebody who does art for a living, and so the concept is like really truly foreign to them. Um, and I guess kind of what I gleaned from what you said is like you had a lot more success like getting your work done after a time once you were honest with people, like I'm on a time crunch, I have to do this, and then you can finally take some time to do what you need to do. And I found myself in situations like that as well, where I because when I work at conventions, I work the booth, and I find myself where there's different kinds of people, right? There's the people who they walk by, and probably the hardest kind of person that I've had to learn how to interact with subtly is there's people that they don't want to talk to me. They don't want to feel awkward, and like they're like if they're not gonna buy something, like they have no business being there. So they don't like I'll make eye contact with them and I'll smile and I'll wave, and then I try to look away from them so I don't make them feel awkward that they're standing at the booth and they haven't decided to purchase anything. Um, and that was, like I said, that was a hard one for me because I wanted to, like, anyone that stops and looks at my art at a convention, I was so excited about it that I was just like, hi, how are you? My name is Val. Please be my friend. And then I realized, like, you can make some people uncomfortable if they are awkward about that. And
right.
then there's
Because they
people
also might
who
not realize that you just want, like, that even if they're not going to buy anything,
I'm
just engaging
flattered.
with
Yeah.
people about the art is like also rewarding. I mean, obviously, we need to like eat and live and all the things, but like you want them to get to know your work, whether they buy anything in that moment or not. But then
Yes.
they think that like because you're in a booth setting, that the only way to interact is like if they're going to purchase. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
no,
Yep.
be our friends.
No, I'm just super stoked that you stopped for longer than 4 seconds to like look at something that's up on my display. Like this is
Right.
cool. How are you? Um, and yeah, so there's people like that. There's people who uh, they'll cruise by a handful of times, and when it comes to conventions, typically people are they've saved all their money to go to this event, right? And so they have like a budget on like I'm gonna buy X, Y, and Z from the artist alley. But a lot of people they like to shop around the first couple of days, and then the last day they come to a booth and they're like, I've been scoping you out for like 48 hours, and I've decided of the 10 things I can buy, I'm buying something from you. And then, they'll come back or they'll check in and say, hey, you still have any of those, whatever prints? And I'll be like, I got like 3. And then they'll either buy one or they'll be like, please hold one for me, you know? Um, but there's also people who they are so excited to talk because the artist is right there, um,
Mhm.
that it sometimes becomes like a little bit of um, pretty much overstaying their welcome when you are like you're having fun, but you're also running a business. Also, I want to take a quick break and just tell Chavi in the chat says, what's the shortcut for rotating artboards in Illustrator? I'm not sure what it is in Illustrator. I'm in Photoshop at the moment, but in Photoshop I can hit R on my keyboard and just spin it around like so. But yeah, so um, there's some times where people they're very excited about talking with the artist and all that, and I have had to really kind of learn as a professional, as an artist, how to communicate with people when I am uncomfortable. And that's, I think it's a great lesson to learn when you're, kind of promoting your art and your brand online, because a lot of people, a lot of interaction, a lot of communication can be kind of lost between the lines when it comes to text. Um, and another thing I've noticed is, um, sometimes people don't understand that they're making you uncomfortable, because when they are very excited about seeing you or seeing the art being made, it's very easy for people to um, treat you and interact with you as if you are also the art and entertainment, and not necessarily as if you are an individual, which, not generally, I don't mean that to sound like people are malicious and will treat you like you're not you. That's not what I mean. But it's I mean, maybe I probably have done it before, like just being so stoked about somebody that does a thing I like, that I don't necessarily realize I'm being super annoying and, am like bombarding this person. um,
Right.
and so I kind of had to learn how to interact in a way that got my point across, while also being in public, representing my own personal brand as a freelancer, and still upholding a positive reputation. And it
Oh,
was one of the hardest things I ever did. It was really difficult. I mentioned to you, I had a customer, very enthusiastic customer, once, who spent like a minimum of 4 hours in front of my booth. And yeah, wanted to talk to me, but stand directly in front of the booth and look me in the eye and have a conversation with me the whole time. And I lost business. Like, I could see people were getting upset and they left, and I didn't make sales for that day. I actually did pretty poorly. And I had to figure out how to communicate, and I ended up taking the route like you did, of just like being super honest, and just like you said, I've got 30 minutes, I have to do X, Y, and Z in that time.
yeah.
We can talk, but I got to do this thing. I just had to tell that particular customer, I love that you are excited about my brand. I love that you want to know more about what I do, and why I create and all that. But while I'm at conventions, I am running a business. I do have to make sales, because I did invest a lot of money in my merchandise. And that's all it took. That's all it took. But it was so new to me, this idea that, just because doing the conventions is super fun doesn't mean that it's going to be super easy all the time. Um,
Right.
and I think I'd probably give the same advice, is like, when you're faced with situations like that. Um, in my experience, the best thing I ever did was be very honest with people about how I was feeling, but above all, cordial and polite. You
Yeah.
know, because that's the best way to do things. And it's another thing that I also didn't realize is, like, you know, it might be a little bit aggravating on, the part of the artist when people do that. But it also, if you think about it, takes a lot of courage, and confidence sometimes, to be approached at all by somebody who admires you and admires your
Right.
work, you know?
Yeah.
So you want to be kind.
Totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so true. That's such a good point. Even like for myself, like if I ever have been around like, I don't know, any artists or musician, just anybody I guess that you admire, and I always get so nervous about
Oh,
going
yeah.
and saying hi, and I'm like, oh, well, why would they don't have time to talk to me, like whatever, it doesn't matter. But then like when you're kind of on the other side of it, not that I have people being like, oh my God, like by any means, but just if anybody actually does take the time to talk to me, I'm always so grateful
Yeah.
that they did take the time and to like engage. So there's definitely that, like, yeah, it takes courage to speak up and engage. Some people are just way better at it than others, but it still takes courage and practice, I think.
Yeah, it could be really hard. But, bottom line, what I hope people take from this
Right.
is, um, I think a lot of us forget sometimes that everybody around us also just got to this planet. You know, we're all learning. We're all, you know, we're all kind of living our own lives and our own experiences, and you know, jumping into freelancing can be really weird, but like interacting with freelancers can also be weird, and not everybody has all the answers, you know, and so, and you also never know what somebody's going through or where somebody comes from. So, you know, reacting with kindness and honesty is always a pretty good bet, I think. You know, and I think too, like I've also been in situations where reacting with kindness and reacting with you know, honesty also didn't work.
Mm.
But in those instances, like I mentioned on a previous design off, sometimes when people are not as kind to you as they could be, I always rather think that, you know, that nastiness probably comes from a place that feels a lot worse than I do when I am mistreated or spoken to in a way that is unkind. So I try to love that person anyways, you know, because like I said, you never really know where someone's coming from. So anytime I still get a little bit of uncomfortableness or a little bit of nastiness, even when I've been pretty nice, I try to just think to myself, you know, I don't know this person. They could be having a heck of a time, and I try to just, you know, still be kind and just kind of appreciate them and wish them the best.
Mm-hmm.
I
Totally.
think in the long run, it's made me feel a lot better about hard situations.
Yeah. And when I think also like when you kind of realize that a lot of times when people are upset, I mean, by all means, like take responsibility when you are actually the cause of causing someone's upset. But um, there are a lot of times where people are just like projecting on you how they're feeling
Yeah,
rather than what you've maybe actually done in action to them to make them feel that way. So try
definitely.
to like kind of reflect on, okay, did I actually do something harmful to this person? If I did, okay, how do I like rectify it?
Hmm.
But also, where do we also not take responsibility for things that are not actually our responsibility to take? Um, that's one that has taken me a long time to learn because I used to try to take responsibility for everything. If people were like throwing stuff at me, I was like, it must have been my fault and like whatever. And but there's like part of that is just like understanding boundaries and taking an honest look at like, okay, who am I actually as a person and how am I actually engaging with those around me? And has anything I've done actually made this person feel this way? It's like,
Hmm.
no, that actually had nothing to do with me.
Yeah,
So
that's a
that can
that's a
be.
good that's a really good point. Because I think, you know, inherently, as designers, right? We, no matter what our goal is, no matter what we're doing, I think a vast majority of us, and let me know if I'm generalizing and it's not true, but I personally think a vast majority of us aim to please, right? Um,
Mm,
we want people to be excited about our work, and we want people to appreciate what we do. We want to make something that wows people, that, you know, gets somebody's attention, and kind of shows our stuff, you know.
mhm.
And so when faced with situations where that doesn't happen, or where somebody becomes upset with a reaction that we have or something, um, I think many of us, and even just in general, you know, things that happen in various situations in life, I think it's really easy for people to um, not know the difference between taking responsibility for our own actions and taking responsibility for someone else's happiness, you know? Because in a lot of instances, especially when you are creating content to, um, I guess, to emotionally impact the community, it can be really, really easy to not know the difference, and they can oftentimes feel like the same thing, you know? Um, but there's a lot of people in the world that feel differently about different stuff, and not everyone is going to appreciate what you're trying to do, you know, and appreciate your artistic voice and stuff, the way you intend it. And
Mhm.
so it's a hard lesson to learn, to kind of just keep doing you, you know, like, do you, boo boo, and go on with your bad self. You know what I'm saying? And keep speaking your voice and being good and kind of. I think the best way to go about it is just to continue to present yourself with a kind of the kind of positivity that you hope to get from other people. You know, be the kind of support that you needed when you were in the beginning. You know, to all people. Um, and eventually, even though you may encounter people who don't agree with you or don't particularly do what you do or like what you do, you eventually find yourself with the positive people you deserve to be around, I think. But it's all about just kind of learning to conduct oneself around different people, and that's the lesson. I never put that together when I first decided like I want to draw. I'd never realized just how much of it is people skills.
Mm.
You know, it's a whole heck of a lot of people skills.
Yeah, especially if you're doing it in like public
Yep, yep.
spaces or whatnot. Yeah.
There's some of us are very mysterious and work for the shadows at all times. You know,
Dude.
nobody knows what they are. They could literally be like an alien in a bunker somewhere drawing and posting on Twitter for all we know. We've got no idea where some of these artists come from and what they're doing. But if you work in the public eye and you're not so mysterious, yeah, it could be an interesting ride. It could be super super interesting for sure.
Totally.
Oh man. Also, I want to do like a quick reminder. We are coming up on the end of the stream, which I cannot believe.
Oh my gosh,
Uh,
are you kidding?
yeah, I it's so we usually like say our goodbyes with a few minutes to spare,
Oh my
because the stream will like cut us off at 57 minutes about, and we're at 47 right now. So we got
wow.
about yeah we got about like 8 to 10 minutes left of a broadcast, which time flies when you're chilling with your friends, you know.
Hey, I'm actually having so much fun, and I did not realize what time it was at all. I was like, nah, I probably got at least half an hour left. Never mind. So I will not be getting to my second concept tomorrow. I'll be back here with this exact concept.
No, that's totally fine. I'm loving it though. He's very expressive.
Yeah,
Also
gotta get
in
the.
chat, if anybody has an idea, I have like illustrated like a sword, and like I'm kind of doing like a weird illustrative style that I never usually do with like um, positive and negative space and trying to keep everything grayscale. But I don't yet have a title for this actual event, and it's a LARPing event, so like live action role playing, like kind of fantasy esque stuff. But if anyone has an idea for what I could call this, I would be super stoked to title this event based on your ideas. Um,
Yeah, I
Ariana says
participate.
both pieces are looking really good. Thank you, Ariana.
Thanks, Ariana. Appreciate that.
Sam says it always goes by so fast with these hour streams. I know, I know.
I like really thought that an hour, because I haven't. This is kind of my first one, um, and I thought an hour was. I was like nervous that I wouldn't be able to fill an hour. I was like, I'm not that interesting. What if I don't do anything interesting to draw? But it's happened so fast, and I'm like, wait. I'm so glad
Wait,
that we
what?
have tomorrow too.
Yeah, I think that's actually like a common misconception with anyone that guests on this show is they're like, oh, I'm gonna do this and this and this in the hour, and I usually say, well, have a backup just in case, but that may not be the case. You may find yourself realizing that you are actually just going to be working on the same one both days, and that's just how it evolves. And they're like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Yeah, trust me."
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. My Google Home just started talking, and I'm not really sure
Oh,
why.
you're totally fine. There was actually a period of time on Adobe, and I watched this happen, and I thought it was hilarious. Which I won't do it right now because I don't want to start it back up again. But the smart device whose name starts with an A and has
Yeah.
an X in it. Okay, so one of our hosts, I won't name Paul Tranny specifically, but he decided that he was going to say, hey, and then said the name, and said, play classic rock. And then everyone listening to the stream who had one in their house, their smart home started playing classic rock. And I was like, oh man. So
That's
if your
actually
Google Home just
brilliant.
starts talking, it's
Yeah.
not even the biggest smart home debacle we've had on this podcast.
Right. I like didn't even realize it was on, but I think maybe something that you said, she was like, "Oh, I'm not plugged in," and I was like, "Okay."
Oh, that's so funny.
I
All right,
really love
that
the idea of everybody on streams
smart home.
smart thingies turning on and playing the same song.
Yeah, it was pretty hilarious, I thought. I'm not sure if everyone in chat thought it was hilarious, but I thought it was an absolute hoot. So,
Agreed.
okay, so I want to put some text to either side of this like strange thing I've got going on here with the diamond on the sword. I can't tell you why this weird jewel is on the sword. I really don't know. I just thought it kind of looked neat to put something there. And I also want to have like the title of the event like kind of arcing around, and then I'm gonna put like a paper texture over this to make it look like kind of old timey, almost like parchmenty. Um, and I could also, instead of just putting like LARPing event or information about it, I could just say, um, like, uh, September 13th. I'm going to use my birthday for this. September 13th, 2020. And then just put that there instead of LARPing event. And then have like the name like boom, and then I'm going to paint up the name so it looks like it's like sword steel, kind of like chilling on the paper, I guess.
So cool. I wish I could see what you were doing.
I'll send it to you afterward because that is, yeah, for those of you in chat that don't know, she can't actually see my work as we're designing, but I can see hers. And Maria says, what font type did VooDoo Val use in her image? I am using one of my new favorite fonts called Coven. And I think it's super cool. It's like a nice chunky font with sharp edges. I think it looks pretty dope. Also, we are pretty much out of time, which I can't believe.
Okay.
So I am going to kind of zoom out of my design here so that I can show the scope of what I worked on, and then maybe you can kind of zoom so everyone can see what you worked on, and we can give everyone like a little peek at the work we did for the stream. There we go. So yeah, this is what we worked on. Our theme for today was designing a fictional event. We're designing something visual to promote an event that doesn't exist, but that we thought was pretty cool. So I did a LARPing event. I started doing like some illustration, kind of minimalist illustration, which usually I'm more all over the place, like filling up the canvas, but I wanted to do something simple. And then what was the title for yours, and what was it about?
Mine is All Day Breakfast is the name of the event, but it's actually a drag show, and the feature drag queen is Continental Breakfast is their name. So it's inspired by them. And this was the kind of the reference
I love
photos
it.
working off of. Yeah, it's kind of
Fabulous.
hard lighting, but yeah.
Absolutely fabulous. Well, we will be back tomorrow at the same time, same bat place, hanging out 3 p.m. Pacific time to work on our designs again. You guys can use the hashtag that I have up on the screen, hashtag Adobe Live Design Off, to post anything that you guys worked on with us today. You do not have to be illustrators or graphic designers to participate. You guys can be UI UX designers, hand letterers, literally whatever you folks do. If you want to also create a fictional event and design something visual for that, please do so. And even if you don't finish it, post it on social media, post it on Instagram or Twitter with that hashtag, because tomorrow at the end of the stream, I'm going to pull up social media and we are going to check out what you folks made, give you a little shout out, and see what you folks have been working on. And yeah, that is all the time we have for today. Ciele, it has been an absolute pleasure hanging out with you, my new friend, Thank you
Oh,
for joining
fun.
me.
Thank you, Val. And I'm excited to see you tomorrow.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, everyone in chat. We've got like 30 seconds left, so I'm going to cut it here. But much love, everybody, and we will see ya on the flip side. I think that's what the cool kids say these days.
I think,
I think
yeah.
so. Yeah, pretty sure. All right, adios, folks. Thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.